Hi there. Protecting ourselves and the ones we love from fraud and scams has become part of our daily lives. I'm Nazia Karrim, the Head of Product Development for the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service, or SAFPS. And today, I'm going to talk you through the fraud landscape in South Africa. What exactly is going on? And what are we doing about it? Firstly, I will give you a brief background about who we are as SAFPS and what our role is in terms of crime prevention in South Africa. Then, I'll take you briefly through some of the statistics, and then we'll discuss some of the scam trends that we've been noticing. And lastly, and most importantly, what are we doing about it? So, who is SAFPS? The Southern African Fraud Prevention Service is a non-profit organization which was established over 20 years ago by just two banks. The aim? To facilitate fraud prevention and detection by sharing data and learnings. We offer a range of products and services for both the consumers and business to help prevent, detect, and action fraud incidents reported. This year, we developed a scams prevention solution called YIMA, which is dedicated to consumers to help drive awareness at ground level. Today, SAFPS has over 100 members across all sectors of South Africa, including consumers. Our centralized fraud database helps facilitate prevention and detection efforts and reduces the number of incidents consumers fall victim to. The tools and services we provide help save the South African economy billions of rands each year. Thus far for this year, ending September 2023, we have confirmed over 4.8 billion rands in savings through our prevention efforts. So what do we know? Let's take a quick look at what's going on in South Africa. So let's take a look at some of the socio-economic influences. It's long been proven that the socio-economic conditions of a country impact its crime rate, and South Africa is no different in that regard. We have been experiencing a 37% year-on-year growth in the number of fraud incidents reported to SAFPS, and a 15% increase in the losses incurred in just the first 3 quarters of this year compared to 2022. According to Statistics South Africa, the constant increase in inflation has resulted in a staggering increase in the cost of living. Let's take, for example, a loaf of bread. In 2018, a loaf of bread used to cost us around 12 rand. Today, we can pay as much as 25 rand a loaf. That's more than 100% in increase. Let's take a look at unemployment. The unemployment rate in South Africa increased by 31%. And coincidentally, unemployment fraud increased by 57%. People are desperate to find a job. So much so that they're now falsifying documentation to make themselves look more appealing to potential employers. And in so doing, are actually committing first-party fraud. Others are falling victim to unemployment scams. And in their desperate attempt to earn a living, some are even falling victim to human trafficking. And this is being reported by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa. Money mules has become another issue. Money mules increased by a staggering 44%. Millions of rands worth of losses already incurred this year can be attributed to money mules. Analysis is showing that majority of the perpetrators are actually males between the ages of 26 and 35. But taking the cake is scams. Scams increased by a whopping 150% compared to last year. The urgency of this type of fraud, it just cannot be stressed enough. The people's desperation, it's being reflected in the reported losses for the first 3 quarters of this year alone. And those amounts have already surpassed the total confirmed losses for 2022. take a look now at some of the scam statistics. The volumes reflect that the top 3 scams reported by victims to the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service are advanced fee scams, investment scams, and cyber scams respectively. Advanced fee scams makes up 34% of the total reports, largely due to goods and services type scams, and more recently, loan scams, which have been targeting consumers with low credit scores. This is followed very closely with investment scams at 23%, of which majority of the incidents are revolving around online trading and cryptocurrency investment scams. Cyber scams are making up 14% of the incident volumes. Most of these incidents reported are associated to hacking of social media accounts, malware, and online impersonation. However, irrespective of what the volume of incidents is saying, the value of the losses seem to show a very different picture in terms of the top 3. Romance scams are still holding the lead in 2023, making up 40% of the current losses incurred. Last year, consumers lost over 125 million rands to romance scams. Advanced fee scams holds 27% of the losses, followed closely by investment scams at 13% in terms of loss value. Losses attributed to cyber scams impacting consumers have started making a mark at around 7% of the current losses. Whereas last year, majority of the cyber scam reports were attributed to ransomware attacks on businesses. This year, the cyber criminals seem to be focusing on the consumer. Another interesting observation is that just over 5% of the victims who reported incidents to SAFPS have in fact met their assailants in person, face to face. This is pretty scary. In terms of the preferred channel of communication, WhatsApp remains that primary channel, either as the point of first contact, or once the target is actually hooked, the scammer migrates the conversation from whatever platform it was initiated to the WhatsApp platform. In the last 3 months alone, victim reports show a confirmed loss of over 15 million rand. Keeping in mind that hundreds of incidents are still unreported, this number could be significantly larger. So let's look a little bit at why South Africa is being targeted. What makes us so appealing to fraudsters? Currently, the Global Organized Crime Index places South Africa as 7th out of 193 UN members, 3rd in Africa, and 1st in Southern Africa, with cybercrime, extortion, and financial crimes holding a risk factor of 7 out of 10. So, why us? Well, irrespective of the current economic downturn, South Africa is still a vibrant and emerging economy. We rank top 5 in Africa. In addition, we are perfectly geographically well positioned between the East and the West. We have established infrastructure and transport routes, and we have a population of over 60 million people, of which unfortunately only a third are digitally literate. This is making South Africa a very lucrative investment for organized crime syndicates. Let's look a little bit at the syndicates itself. Local syndicates are actually being recruited or are working with global syndicates to help expand their networks, and they are leveraging of each other's expertise and resources. The syndicates are collaborating and flourishing. They are experimenting and testing our systems to identify the sweet spots and to further their reach. And together, these criminals are fleecing us of billions of rands each year. Law enforcement has prioritized human trafficking, money laundering, poaching, and drug trafficking as the main syndicated crimes in South Africa, and rightly so. However, the tide is fast changing to include cybercrime. South Africa is quickly becoming the playground to test new cyber trends and modus operandi. The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research is currently estimating financial losses due to cybercrimes at 2.2 billion rands per annum. We need to focus on managing this risk. We've spoken about the socioeconomic conditions, we've looked at the statistics, we've spoken about why South Africa is being targeted. But how exactly are we being targeted? What are the scams that are hitting us at home? The first scam that's impacting us locally is ancestry scams. This scam does not only manipulate your emotions, but it also abuses the African traditional belief of communing with your ancestors for guidance and support in any aspect of your life. It's abusing your religious belief. Scammers here profile the victims in advance. In some cases, they befriend the target and then claim to commune with the victim's ancestors. They inform the target that they need to be cleansed to remove the obstacles in their lives, getting them to believe that the reason for their financial, medical, or relationship woes is because they need to be cleansed and their ancestors are unhappy with them. Victims are unfortunately drugged with hallucinogens, which results in them believing that they have in fact seen, spoken to, or communed with their ancestors in some fashion, and eventually land up following the scammer's instructions. In many cases, the scammer requests the victim to cash out all their life savings, even their pensions, in the hope that it will be blessed and multiplied by the ancestors via the fake sangoma. The money is then obviously stolen by the fake traditional healer, and in many cases, unfortunately, the females are sexually assaulted. Millions of rands have been lost to this scam. Another scam that's impacting the region is a commodity scam. Here, foreign nationals from northern African countries pretend to be mining executives, offering lucrative investment opportunities to South Africans in the Coltan stone mining industry. The stone is used in the manufacturing of various electronics, including laptops and cell phones. The syndicate profiled their victims, targeting wealthy business people, convincing them to invest in the expansion of these mines, only to find out after that they have been scammed after millions of rands worth of investment. Lastly, the increase in the volumes in loan scams in the last 12 months has been phenomenal. Syndicates are impersonating established financial institutions, trusted institutions, offering fake loans to already desperate victims. As mentioned earlier, they're targeting people with low credit scores, or like the victim who was scammed earlier this year for about 2.7 million rands after he made a loan application for his farm. The scammers claim that the fees required to be paid upfront are for administration, taxes, or insurance purposes. And the applicants, or victims in this case, don't know any better and land up paying these fees only to find out they have been scammed. So now that we understand what's happening and how it's happening, let's take a look at what we're actually doing to resolve the problem. So what is the answer? The answer is collaboration. Collaboration is the key. Scams cannot be addressed alone or separately. It's a delicate balancing act between the various stakeholders impacted, the environments that enable scams, and the sectors that have the power to change the dynamics and implement the proposed solutions. To help drive collaboration, SAFPS works with various law enforcement and government agencies, such as the Hawks Dedicated 419 Scams Team, Financial Intelligence Agency, and the South African Cyber Fraud Task Team, which is an international collaboration across multiple law enforcement agencies around the world and the private sector organizations wanting to actively make a difference. The collaborative approach is proving itself successful. with joint operations between the stakeholders resulting in successful takedowns, like the Black Act Syndicate that was taken down in November last year, which cost citizens around the world over 6 million euros in romance scams alone. So, this leads us to the next question. How do we collaborate?
We employ the active awareness approach. Don't just know what's happening, be part of the solution. So you're probably wondering right now, what is active awareness? Well, active awareness includes communicating trends, hotspots, and prevention tools and tips to the consumers and businesses to help them empower themselves. We do this via various online and media channels, as well as getting our members involved in the communication process to message the information directly to their staff and their customers. As part of our skills transfer programs, we create informational material that can be used to teach the front lines about the latest MOs, the tools and techniques that are being used, and how to identify the various frauds and scams perpetrated. And most importantly, how to support the victim. Sadly, many victims are turned away by the ill-informed and are told to seek civil recourse. In many cases, the victims are even ridiculed for having fallen victim to a scam. Please, remember, these fraudsters are artists, and it can happen to the best of us. Let's talk a bit about accountability. Addressing the issue requires that we all take accountability for our roles in resolving the problem: law enforcement, business, and consumers. SAFPS holds cross-sector operational and strategic committees where members share their learnings and request assistance from us, fellow members, or the authorities to address a risk or resolve an incident. We also discuss the emerging threats and strategize on how to collectively hedge the associated risks operationally. This process requires us to actively include the consumer in the fight against fraud and scams. One of our goals is to change the mindset of the public from "what's the point of me reporting this incident" to understanding their role in helping minimize the problem and becoming actively aware of the risks and how to prevent themselves from falling victim. For that, SAFPS created YIMA, a solution made up of the best practices and solutions in South Africa and from around the world. YIMA: stop, think, don't get scammed. Interesting facts: YIMA means stop or pause in Zulu and Xhosa. So what is YIMA? YIMA is a toolbox to empower consumers to fight back and prevent themselves from falling victim. It contains tools like Verifier, which biometrically validates a fellow South African citizen against the Department of Home Affairs, and this is great for romance scams and investment scams, which are quite popular. We also have a DNS scanner used to verify website URLs and to check if a website is safe before you click on the link. Our avid online shoppers and internet surfers, you should install our YIMA browser extension, which actually does this for you automatically in the background. The website also contains incident reporting channels and even a tool to test if you are being targeted in a scam, which, as it turns out, is one of the most popular tools on our website. The intel gathered from these reports made is helping us understand the extent of the threat and spurring on syndicate identification and apprehension efforts. Since implementation of the initiative a few months ago, we have identified numerous bank accounts directly associated to scams and fraud, completed over 5,500 domain scans, shut down, blocked, or blacklisted various domains, including a phishing website that was imitating one of the biggest insurance application portals in South Africa for the last 2 years, and might have continued to do so if a victim did not report it to YIMA. After our awareness campaigns, even the volume of incidents reported to law enforcement has increased from originally at 15% in April 2023 to just over 21.5% in October.
Now that we understand the fraud landscape in South Africa, we need to start making the changes. Active awareness is a habitual cycle, and it needs to be embedded in each and every one of us, from our kids who surf the net to you and me, and our community leaders. We all need to be actively aware and prevent ourselves from falling victim. And when we do, not if, when we do, we need to stop, think before we act, and take responsibility to action the threat for ourselves and those that we love. Join us in the fight against fraud and empower yourself by staying actively aware.